organized about that. So we did that, and one thing went to the other, and just, we started playing out on weekends and stuff, and out of town, doing the Tennessee, North Carolina circuit, and decided that, heck, this is really a lot of fun. Let's quit school for now, because we can always go back, and let's stick with this career and see what happens with it. If in a year we flop, we'll just go back to school. So that's essentially, that's it in a nutshell. I would say the first big break was winding up in Robert Palmer's top 10 best singles of the year, New York Times list, 1980. He's the critic for the New York Times. Our manager, Jefferson Holt, sent out, of course, the first record we put out was the independently released single of Radio Free Europe, Sitting Still, on Hibtone Records. And Jefferson, the thorough gentleman that he is, our manager, sent copies of those out to college radio stations, record labels, and critics around the country. And we were really surprised. It was around December, it was right around Christmas time. Robert Palmer, every year in the New York Times, has his 10 best singles of the year, 10 best, pop category, contemporary category singles. And all around, John and Yoko Ono and Michael Jackson. Surrounded by, all these great contemporary commercial hits of the day was Radio Free Europe by R.E.M. And I remember reading it, my jaw just dropping, just not believing that he would, A, have even listened to it, but B, liked it enough to put it in that category. And then, just literally within days, record companies were, calling us up, writing us letters saying, hey, send us tapes, send us tapes. And at the time, we weren't really interested in signing with a record label. We just didn't think we were mature enough or whatever. We were still having a lot of fun just playing on the club circuit. And, but things went on, and by the time we were ready to put our next record out, which we thought the next natural progression for us was to put a 5-song EP out, we were just about ready to put that out ourselves when IRS, who had always been a real kind of favorite of ours, because all the cool groups they'd had on their label, really approached us, and they really, really, really wanted to put the record out and encompass that in a record deal. So we said, yeah, what the heck. So there we went. Well, we all listen to everything. I think the only thing that we don't all enjoy, can all sit down and enjoy, is something like opera. But we can all listen to classical music, bluegrass, mountain folk music, country music. There's some heavy metal bands I like. Certainly, country is a real cross-the-board thing. And some of the '60s rock stuff, that's evident from listening to it. But we're hesitant to say that there's 3 or 4 groups that really kind of influence our sound and what kind of songs we think we should be writing, because that just hasn't happened. We've all been lucky enough that we've had a pretty rich background of musical taste throughout our lifetime, and there's really no 1 or 2 groups that sticks out. For me, I guess what prompted me to really enjoy music was the Motown thing, the Supremes. I was 5 or 6 when I started listening to them, because my brothers and sisters go in and played on their stereo, and I just really dug that stuff. I thought that was the coolest.
In 1983, R.E.M. released their first full-length LP, Murmur, which met with great critical acclaim. Drummer Bill Berry says the first areas of support for the band came from college radio stations who were responsive to the new sounds the band was producing.
Well, college radio picked up right away. They started playing the independent single pretty heavily, and our records, not to brag, but to answer your question, every one of our records has gone #1 in the college charts for a certain amount of time. This last record has been in the charts. It has been #1 on the college charts longer than any other record in the history of that chart or whatever. But college radio has been just, we really owe our success to college radio. We did a lot of college tours, in answer to this great popularity we had on the college airways. And it's really, until this record, we haven't had any real commercial breakthrough on radio, although we're getting that now. Although, we don't have huge hits, but, we're getting actually across-the-board returns on, play on major stations, which has also made our, the age group of our following drop a little bit. Not drop, but it encompasses a younger fan that we weren't getting 2 or 3 years ago, when our fans were generally over 20, I would say, between 20 and 30. Now I look out there and I see kids that are obviously not a day over 15. And as always, we've been most popular in the larger cities. New York, we're real big. Los Angeles, real big. Chicago. Surprisingly, Atlanta, for being our hometown, for other cities, compared to other cities its size, we're not as popular there. We're a lot bigger in, say, Minneapolis than in Atlanta. I don't know why that is. It's real weird. But there are a lot of cities, most of the cities about the size of Atlanta we're bigger in than we are in Atlanta for some reason. Europe has been had been kind of slow for us until the last year or so, last year and a half, and we started getting a lot of press. They finally started realizing that, hey, it wasn't just a mortal sin to be American and play an instrument, you know, because they do have a real attitude about that. And now it's almost swung the other way. It's kind of cool to be an American band now in Europe. So, you know, we've done pretty well. We did those festival dates with U2. That was about 6 months ago, and that really helped a lot.
Well,
that was a lot of exposure for us.
Well, speaking of Europe, what was it like recording the new album over in England? I think that was the first time y'all had been over there, am I right?
No, we've been over there. That was the last time, well, no, that was the last time we went over was U2, which was after the recording of that. Now, we've been over there about 7 or 8 times. But nobody knows about it because literally the first 4 or 5 times we went over, it was just like, you know, playing tiny little clubs, you know. And there just wasn't a lot of impact there. But it did set the groundwork for our last few tours, which is doing a lot better. For us, it's very simple. We do what we want to do. We write the kind of songs that we write, and I think that's all you can do. If you try to be individual, you know, to go out of your way to be individual is no really different than saying, well, okay, I have to write a hit, because that means that there's a premise involved that really isn't natural. You know, it should just come very naturally. It's kind of like, you know, stream of consciousness, William S. Burroughs, whatever. It's the idea that we're all, you know, okay songwriters. When we get together, when all 4 of us get together, you know, fairly good things happen with, you know, the combination of the 4 of us, and that's all we look for. We don't really, you know, we hope that in itself will stamp individuality.
When R.E.M. recorded their 3rd album, Fables, the Reconstruction, they left their familiar southern surroundings to record the album in England.
Recording in London was really, when you're in the studio and you're on a time schedule, you really don't see much else but the studio. And London, which we'd been in enough to be kind of familiar with, it wasn't like, you know, the wide open, eye-popping, you know, wonder of a new tourist or whatever. And we were so busy that when we left the house, we were renting a house downtown, had about a 20-mile drive out to the studio. We'd get up early, go out to the studio, go in there, and we'd just hole up there until we were too tired to work anymore, and then we'd leave and go back home and sleep. It was kind of a boring. It's not as glamorous as it sounds, believe me. And once you're inside a studio, they're all the same. I mean, the technician spoke with a British accent, but other than that, it was, you know, it was kind of it was a low-key studio. It wasn't, you know, super top-of-the-line, you know, state-of-the-art studio, which we don't want anyway, because that's not the kind of sound we want to get. So we were basically very happy with, you know, working with Joe Boyd, no surroundings.
Okay, now everybody's going to be wondering about this. You need to tell us, what is the album title?
Well,
what does it signify? I mean,
I say it's wait a minute, now you got me confused. Reconstruction of the Fables. It can be Fables of the Reconstruction or Reconstruction of the Fables. What happened was the band literally split 2 and 2 on what it should be. We knew we wanted Reconstruction in it. And at first we were going to call it Reconstruction, but then we realized that, wait a minute, that's all 3 of our LPs with one-word titles. So we didn't want to do that. So we figured, well, we thought about it, and Fables of the Reconstruction came up. And somebody said, no, I like Reconstruction of the Fables better. And then we really had a loggerhead. It was split, 2 and 2 split. So we could not decide what it was going to be called. So we made it a circular title like that, depending on which way you turn the record.
Okay, well, does that title signify anything? Perhaps Reconstruction of the South is what I was thinking, since you have
that's
Southern
part
roots.
of it, and you know, we're proud that we're from the South. You know, we're not native Southerners, none of us really, but that gives me even more right to say that, you know, I feel good about living in the South because I've lived both places. I've lived in the Midwest and in the South, and I think there's a mentality in the North about the South that's really, really wrong. You know, that people are less intelligent and that they're, you know, they don't have anything to offer musically, except, you know, long guitar solos like Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers used to play, which are not bad. I don't think that's bad. But so we've always tried to subtly get across that, hey, we're a Southern band, and you know, we're proud of it, even though we don't sound a lot like the boogie woogie bands that were popular 10 years ago. So all of our records have had kind of that motif running through it here and there, sometimes more obvious than others. Reconstruction, yeah, actually the word was suggested by Michael Stipe's father. And it also represents, I think, an actual reconstruction period for R.E.M. because those songs were all, unlike the last two records, which were recorded after those songs had been, we toured with them, and we knew them inside out, and we knew how people responded to them. That's usually how we try to do it. We try to actually work songs into the set before we record them to see what kind of response we get, and also iron out the arrangement and stuff. This record last year was so hectic that we didn't have time to write songs until literally like a month before we went into the studio. So it was, there was a lot of intrepidation about just how good these songs were and how they were going to sound on record, let alone live, because we never played them to anybody. So we had, you know, 2 or 3 of those songs we had played live before. They were older songs, but the bulk of that record was brand new stuff. You know, hence kind of a reconstruction starting from ground zero, where we, you know, just literally sat around for hours every single day for a month, coming up with brand new songs, and it really was like learning how to walk all over again. My personal favorite, I think, is Maps and Legends. I don't think Michael likes it too, but I don't know anyone else in the world that feels that way. I like Can't Get There From Here. It's a fun song to play live, it really is, and it was fun to record. It was the only song that we thought it would be the hardest song to record, just because it's so, you know, it has to, something about it had to be so right, and it was, I think, the only song on this record that we recorded like the first take, and it was just like, that's it, you know. So that was real neat. That was a real, you know, spontaneous effort. It kind of sounds like it on the record. I'm real proud of that.
This band seems to be one that is going to survive, and survive by staying true to its established style rather than constantly changing. But do you see any changes for the band, either in music or in style?
Oh yeah, well that's going to come with the territory. And, you know, like I said, we don't really set up goals for ourselves. I mean, the next record may be you know, it may be a jug band lineup or something. You never know. We're open for anything. But I don't really see, you know, it's hard to say, yeah, well, next year at this time we're going to be doing this, that, or the other thing. I can't answer that because I don't know. And that's the beauty of it, because it's not laid out for us. We're just going to have to see what happens. Right now we're writing new songs for the next record, you know. And we started practicing like 3 days ago, and we don't have anything really together yet, but we've got all these like weird ideas that just haven't gelled into anything yet. They will eventually, but I still don't know what they're going to sound like. The one thing I'm really most proud of as a member of R.E.M. is that I think our records, they may not be great, but I think they're maybe a little more timeless than a lot of the current stuff coming out now. I think you're going to be able to listen to it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and maybe enjoy it as much as you do now or in a different way. Unlike some of the, you know, the garbage that's coming out now, the real, you know, predictable contemporary stuff that, you know, is going to be in the cutout bin in 3 years or whatever.